records for healthcare professionals. Perhaps that's not essential for the RHEA use case, and we don't have to have that implemented. Does everybody, what do people think of that? Do we need a query for healthcare professionals? Do we need to return a list of records? Or it's just returning an ID? I'm saying it's absolutely essential. Or you can leave it in there, just cross out and say it's not essential. You could, but that could also be done directly with the system itself. It doesn't have to be through the transaction. So I'm just not seeing a need for this query returning a list of healthcare professionals as for what we in our requirements.
That seems to be some functionality that or rather present in the information system.
Yeah, exactly.
Parameters itself.
So this is actually what Sean and I were talking about when we were just on break. The thinking that I had going in, which quite frankly might be off base, but was that queries would return lists and gets would return records. And that the lists would not be the entirety of the record, it would be basically the information you get from the provider, which would include some basic demographic information. Thinking in terms of, if I had a UI and I was doing a general query, this would give me, and I said, oh yeah, that one. But that's got a kind of built-in assumption that your query isn't going to return 30,000 records, because you can't do something with 30,000 records. It's not intended to be the way that I work with my database. It's intended to be the way that I get to my records by returning the list that I can click through and say, get that one. And if I know my GUID already, if I know my EBIT already, if I don't have to go through the process of getting the list and picking from the list, I just go get the one I want. So there's an opportunity to cache these GUIDs for systems that need to be able to get this open RS instance, which should have an opportunity to resolve its internal IDs to the enterprise provider IDs, but just cache them. But if the thought process was no, that I'm going to do a query and I'm going to get everything I query, then we have to prevent somehow this premise of getting 20 or 30,000 records.
Yeah. So that's actually something I brought up at the last meeting on developers rules, is having a list of links instead of a list of records returned. I don't know, perhaps the question then is to ask, have people changed their minds?
Well, here's sort of my opening conversation with Sean. My own background is about 6 years ago, we were looking in a Canadian context about how to stand this up. And we felt that Canada didn't quite have the bandwidth to be returning and querying huge gobs of records at a time. And I got to say, my bandwidth in Toronto is significantly better than that I'm finding here, so that would be something we should take to heart, that as a use case, I might saturate my ability to carry the traffic if I don't have a way to limit what can be returned in this.
Well, I think it's not too much of a problem if you want to return entire records. It's in the actual messaging response. You could just make it page names or something. So you could have links to another page with return more records or something like that. So I don't see it as a huge problem, but I think the more things, the bigger question is, do we want to return full records, or do we want to return links to records?
And just decide, do queries return records, or do they return key? And do gets return records? Because your get requires you to have the key. And it looked like queries were intended to return groups of an entire record, and gets were intended to return kind of multiple widgets into my get request and return multiple records or only one. I have one record on.
Just make multiple calls.
If you're going to let a query return multiple records, it just has to make sure that I don't get 50,000.
It's hard for me to answer your question, Ryan, because if I look at what we say we're doing this year, what we're doing is supporting the maternal child use case, and the only role of the healthcare registry is to validate whether some presumed healthcare professional is or isn't. Now, if we look at simple functions of a registry, we can imagine the situation where, yes, I want to know, I want to have a list of all the providers who have a certain characteristic. I mean, I think the point that you're making there is you're probably right, and probably under the scenes, if you wanted to know the 10 providers who lived in a particular village, you might come back with a set of links and then get them one at a time before assembling them in some record to send out. Now, typically in those kind of query situations that we'll talk about with patients, where you say, here's Edward Martin, give me his ID. One of the possible responses is we had too many matches right there. But so this query it sort of comes out a little bit out of the blue, and maybe you should just put it on hold.
I tend to agree. I think we don't have a use case that uses very formal healthcare professionals through the REST API, so maybe you could put it as a low priority or something that we don't necessarily have to. Is there a strong feeling otherwise?
I agree with you. The only potential use case, and I think we can handle it differently, would be when a new clinic goes on to make sure that they have synced up all their providers. Apart from that, I think you could do it differently.
Yeah, I think that actually probably be a self-curation of the system rather than API calls. So time against. Okay, so should we agree to strike out this query for healthcare professionals for now and make it a low priority for something we want to support in the future, but it's not essential for this growing space?
The application, you'd also have to query to see if somebody's in there before you enter them again. So, but that's through a user interface, not the
Yeah, through the user interface.
Is it not the referral pattern control? Would you use this for a referral pattern? I don't think so.
No, you don't refer to a person. You don't refer to a person. You refer to someone possible.
Okay, moving on to the next. The next transaction is really just to get a single healthcare professional. So this is it'll leave us with the two. One to get the enterprise provider ID, and one to just get the healthcare professional's record. So this would be the one to query to return healthcare professionals full record, which would only be those 6 or so attributes that we identified. So what we have here, maybe at this stage, we have a single parameter. You just pass in the professional's ID. And then as a response, you would get an HL7 version 2.5 message that then just describes the record for that professional. We need to put some of those together and show what that looks like. So that's just a HL7 PMU VO E01 message that has a whole bunch of the other attributes that we might not require now. But this would just basically include then those 6 attributes that we've now decided on. More than likely is. Any problems or questions or something that people have about this one?
I think we should look at it in detail and provide comments. So the things we care about, we're going to find out when we try to do it.
Yeah, exactly. If people want to look at this in depth offline, or out of the meeting, it is available on the wiki. If you go to rhea.jp.org, rearrange our wiki, and then you'll see there's some technical specification documentation, and if you click on those links, you'll find your way through to this document that I'm going through, and that'll link also through to these Excel spreadsheets where you can view the more in-depth data. If you want to do that, you can go through that. Okay, does anyone have any other issues or questions to bring up about the provider registry? I think that's pretty covered. Okay, I think we'll try and move along to another registry, perhaps.
Ryan, can I suggest you just touch base on the facility registry? We're going to make time for the day. We've got 14 minutes left in the session.
So this registry will probably be one of the shortest ones. I was just going to go down as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. So we'll have a look at the healthcare facility registry next. So basically, so basically, what we have here is very similar to the professional registry, or we originally had the professional registry, and that is we can query for healthcare facilities, and also query for a single healthcare facility, and get the records of that. So it's basically an API call to get a list of healthcare facilities and to get a single specific healthcare facility. Following on from what we just had a discussion around, our major use of this will really be within the RHEA use case, would be to verify a facility registry. So following on from what we did with the professional registry, should we implement the same transaction here as well, where we could just return the internal facility? I mean, would it make sense to also have an enterprise facility ID? Have we thought about something like that?
That's different from the force ID.
Because, I mean, force ID would be similar to like an NID if you compare it to the professional. So should we also have an internal sort of facility ID?
I don't think so. No.
Do they ever change the force ID for a facility? What happens if it's split? Have they ever turned the facility into?
If what happens?
If it's split, so we get even.
Yeah, if it is in well, we don't have such a case, but it's in the idea.
Yeah, some of them might start an outpost that's associated with it, and they would get a new number.
So what I'm doing is I'm trying to use the force ID for this and go to complete enterprise and do I agree.
But so people understand how the system works. We still treat FOSA as a generic attribute, right? So one day, 2 years from now, you decide to have FOSA in some other sort of identifier for private sector or whatever, you would still have that.
Internally, you have to wait for that.
I think it's, yeah.
Just could be a game.
Okay, so Following on from our RHEA use case, we only really need to verify a certain facility's ID. Do we also want, I mean, in this, how we've been thinking of before is to return the record for that facility and then just count the full ID from that. Well, I suppose what we could do is, because we know what these already, we want to see if they exist, so we can make a call to the get facility ID, and if we get a positive response, so it's okay. And that's all right. So should we have a separate message line, a separate endpoint like we have? Yeah. Sure. We can. I don't know if it's useful.
You think we get the get typically also gets the data. So we get
let's take it simple. If you do a get on that, you get one record. If you get 0 records, so good. If you get more than 1 record.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is the primary use case is validation.
This first place, I think so. Sounds like it.
Is there any other use case besides primary use case?
There are for RANDI's needs to try and actually querying all the facility registries.
And referrals will need us to do, queries against it. I think our next phase is immediately going to call out all kinds of things.
Yeah, I think we do have quite a few use cases for the other queries within the facility registry, because there's a lot of systems that want to make use of that data. Okay, I don't think there's much discussion needed here really. Show the responses. So basically what we have here, this is looking at some of the schema for the XML that we've defined through the interoperability layer that we're expecting to be returned from the facility registry. Contains just a number of fields that have been implemented. It's a pretty simple, sort of flat XML-based structure. Then we also have, just something that's quite interesting is that resource map at the moment is actually returning, it supports a JSON API as well as a RSS based XML response. So what we're doing in this case is actually through the interoperability transforming that into this simpler just XML schema that we had defined from before. So I can show you this. This is actually something running. This is a sample client that I actually call into the interoperability layer, and it gets a response from the current resource map implementation. Providing
the Wi-Fi just reset with the power, so you might.
Well, actually, it worked there. So it went through. This is currently just returning the RSS feed that resource map is exposing. But I'm putting in place at the moment a transformation where this will be it'll be an XSLT run on the instance as well to transform it into something we described like in the schema, which would be quite a lot simpler. Perhaps I can just show what that looks like so people get it there and understand.
How does it come together?
What's the size of that master file? And were any of those blocks, were any of those large, you looked like it was a pretty tight message.
Yeah. Get back to it's not big at all. That's a single record. It's small.
So if the record doesn't have the potential to saturate, why wouldn't it? If the records themselves are terse.
Then it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, because there's nothing to give a subsetting that's already been inside a packet. Smaller things and more white space.
Yes, it's way less than 121.
So you can see here we have the XML that we described that will be transformed into. That is not RSS. So this is something that is what the point of service systems will actually receive as a response. Simple flat XML structure.
Yeah, so one of the things is that the tool allows dynamic changes to the schemas of information that landing or power users, right, and data. And these messages go to the interoperability layer. Obviously, we have a stable set of attributes and field names that we're based on. So the tool allows you to give the data name. The field false ID will be assigned a code that will use the API that can be a stable representation of that field and not kind of randomization or something like that. And across all the APIs, you can verify that. The same thing for the lookup values. For example, is it a private hospital? Is it a military hospital? Things like that. Each one of those has an ID that's actually shared across many of those systems that we deals with. And that is what can be used in the lookup information there, so that in interoperability, you're given these unique numbers that represent a private hospital for all the system. Which is separating what the user typically changes in the UI versus what the API is supposed to.
So something I actually wanted to bring up with the group is that we are currently defining our own XML schema here to describe a facility. And something that is becoming common in REST APIs is the use of either Atom or RSS to return lists of objects. So I guess the question is, should we continue to use this current XML-based schema, or do people of the opinion that going for something that is more best practice, such as RSS or Atom, would be a better choice? And I'm kind of looking at you.
If your interoperability with trigger processes based on information containing documents, you want to have validation, is how you do it. The typical pattern is to keep this XSD that validates them as what you would apply to the contents of the RSS. If you start this item, you would say, I expect one of these, and unless I get this, I'm going to just throw my hands in the air instead of how to deal with it, which gives you a little bit of the combination.
Just a question, detailed question. In RSS, you say you have a list of objects. Are objects atomic or structure?
They can have structure inside.
That's basically an XML.
You get the same product.
RSS is just a container. It says there's stuff. Item 1, thing. Item 2, thing. Item 3, thing.
So just like Firebase, I'm not sure if you can really see that, but it's just got an RSS just has a channel, and then the channel has multiple items, and within the items you can see there's just various properties that are being set. But this can also be more structured. You can actually, what you could do is take, for example, this facility record and its schema and insert that into an item within RSS and have that so that you can still validate to that schema, that same schema, but have it contained within RSS, which is more of the standard, where instead of defining our own list structure. That's my question.
This was for RSS.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm sure I know it'll work. I'm wondering if it's something we should consider, seeing as we're trying our best to strive to use standards. Should we not come up with our own way to list items and rather use something like RSS or ATOM, which are very simple and can be pursued by lots of tools out there already? Yeah. I mean, because, so basically what it comes down to is, should I change this XML structure that we're returning at the moment to be based on RSS or ATOM? If so, which one? RSS or ATOM? I don't think it makes a huge difference, but the people have preferences.
Do you want to consider stakeholders and how that's different, you say, otherwise? Generic XML versus
we're stylized RSS already.
So,
do you have any preference here, generic XML versus stylized XML?
so maybe I could put it into...
No, I don't know enough to be dangerous.
So it'll basically still be XML documents. They'll just be in a slightly different structure, but still have the same schema. Basically, it's the same information, just in a slightly different envelope.
The nesting, what you care about, which is the nesting structure and all that,
Yeah,
all exactly the same. That's just that the tag names,
As long
the
as
data
there's
stuff is something that pops
for
on
the records and for the fields.
Yeah.
That'll all stay the same. It's just a more standard way to represent, to encapsulate those items.
So you're talking about envelope, basically. I'll still send you an XML document. I'll just send it in this kind of envelope instead of in SOAP or
Something we may have. Well, instead of something we may have, we'll send it in the standard form. So I think any kind of speaks for itself.
And can't we use standard APIs to allow us to have both and just specify whether you want RSS or ATOM?
Yep.
Right now, for us, you actually go to the endpoint and say .json, and it's JSON, .rss is RSS, .atom would be
So can we answer it that way then?
We can do it that way as well.
Yeah,
Let's do it that way.
That's a place where the flexibility has almost no cost to you. You might as well just go ahead and make it available. So
don't
don't
you
use
necessarily anything
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah.
The only thing is that Atom has extra attributes that we have to finagle to make Atom happy. So there's a little bit more creativity to put into filling in that manual field.
Yeah.
RSS doesn't have.
But something again could be dealt with in an hour or two kind of thing.
No, so it's just not a coding. It's just that if somebody's expecting Atom, those fields can be filled in ways that we will have to interpret how to fill them in. And RSS doesn't tell you, well, you have to provide a value for it, so we just provide it to you as a value. 6 and a half a dozen.
Is there any issue around things that are boring, like finding guaranteed delivery of information, or some of the stuff that the whole WS stack does? Do we need to do any of those things? Or do we need to do none of those things? Because those all got put in place for a reason, or what seemed like a good reason.
Yeah, the thing that in this case is validation. It's an atomic idempotent single transaction sort of thing. Typically for RSS, when you have a long running transfer of many items, what you do is keep the E tag for each item, so if connection gets cut in the middle and so on, the receiving system can say, I never finished getting this. And it's like a poor man's W without the retry. It gives you the tools to try.
No, but we're not using web services, which has all of that. So our first use case won't stress it necessarily, but if all of our subsequent ones will, we ought not to make a decision now that actually won't work for phase 2. So we will have to know that we can do some of these things that show themselves in subsequent.
Fortunately, SOAP stacks are pretty commodity these days. So if we see that, we need to add some further and improve security, reliability, transaction maintenance, then it's a matter of adding those in.
Right, just add it as another input.
No, I don't know. My question is, why did we not choose to go with RSS or ATOM at the beginning? Why would we make that part of it?
I think it was just not knowing that was common.
All right, so there was no compelling reason to do it that is no longer valid.
I think it's a new, something that we encountered along the way and thought was a good idea.
then one comment I'd like to make from an admin point of view is now that we've added these two new services to really be documents made available rapidly to when we publish this whole technology, wide groups of knowledge, show them how you can access this before they can get hold of it.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much the facilities registry handled. What basically what we've come to the decision is to use RSS for returning to the list, and then the facility will still remain the same level.
So we agreed to use RSS as well as that.
Yeah, so let's stage to RSS to what this can steal, and then let's just go around as another option.
Let's say RSS is required and it is nice to have, so they both do the same thing. But you know, it should be fairly simple to do both.
I think that the code that hydrates those objects will be, it'll probably work with both RSS and app.
Yeah.
So you just use it, right?
Yeah, no, the framework that we have allows it.
Yes.
It's just that we have one that works right now. We can test it now and on the page. I have to put that in the list and put that everything that's running.
So to finalize about the requirements of the facility registry, a lot of people have asked us to document the requirements that went into it as a source map tool at large, because there are many other customers that have been formed how things happened before. So we just finished updating a wiki with all the user stories around that. So I'll be sending a link to you and Ryan and others, everybody, so that you have the reference.
If I'm on the resource mapper site and I didn't see anything there, is that a different site? Am I in the right place?
Are you looking at the tool itself, or are you looking at the wiki and source code components?
I think I'm looking at where you can download the tool. I'm looking at resourcemap.instead.org.
No, that's
That's the wrong site. Okay, well, just send me over to that. Thank you.
So I think we're only at 20 minutes left. I'm not sure if I want to get into the shared health record or client registry then, so we don't get cut off halfway.
Sorry, Ryan, separate conversation. I don't think let's not get into anything else on that side with 20 minutes to go, pretty hectic day. I think I'll probably just ping this by myself, since I don't want to handle discussing things. We'll do an after-action review quickly, and then let's call it a day and give the team some headspace on which one of it. And there's Chris Richard, anything you like to finish? No, it's not.
Well, we're going to talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to continue this discussion first thing in the morning.
Shared health record, client registry, and then also around this next, but I think that's already, the first